Welcome back to the Pirate Republic. This is an audiobook presentation of Pirates of the Wild West, the first novel in the Storm of Time series, released one chapter at a time. In this chapter, Blackbeard, Hornigold, and young Tom pay a visit to Philip Albert, and they have a discussion about raising the Queen Anne's revenge and how this smart Englishman can help. All right, it's time for Chapter 15. Chapter 15. The Smart Englishman. Philip Edward Albert fumbled with his cigarette case and matches as he walked through the lobby of his hotel. The pocket on the breast of his tweed jacket was just a bit too narrow for the case to slide out easily, and he seemed to be all thumbs this morning as he sought the elements to satisfy his dire craving for nicotine. He used his shoulder to push open the hotel door as his hands were in the process of opening the case and retrieving a pre-rolled cigarette. He popped the smoke between his lips and struggled to restore the elegant case while looking down at the pocket in frustration. Philip turned left to walk down the wooden sidewalk without bothering to glance up. He was finally successful in pocketing the case and then looked up and skidded to a startled halt in front of two imposing men that he immediately recognized as the mythical pirates of the Caribbean, Benjamin Hornigold and Edward Thatch, a.k.a. Blackbeard. They were both dressed differently than the night of their first meeting. Hornigold in current-day workman's clothes, and Thatch looking like an obscenely well-armed banker. Philip then eyed the small Chinese boy, matchingly dressed with Thatch, standing to the right and slightly behind the tall, spare pirate of another era. "There's your smart Englishman, Edward. Looks like your cabin boy has come through again," Hornigold said, crossing his thick arms as he hovered in front of Philip, blocking his way. Philip looked up at the two men with alarm, unlit cigarette hanging from his open mouth while it clung to his lip. I've been looking forward to reuniting with our new English scientist friend, Mr. Albert Thatch said, taking the box of matches from Philip's hand, striking a match, and holding it to the man's cigarette. It took a moment for Philip to recover his wits and use the flame Thatch held to light his smoke. "You do remember Benjamin and me, do you not, Mr. Albert?" Philip nodded his head yes. "You two men strike a figure that is hard to forget." "Ah, good to hear. We'd be liking to have a talk with you," Thatch said. "Well, I must inform you that I have an important meeting with a mining company that I'm pressed to attend," Philip said while attempting to pass them by. Hornigold stepped in front of Philip, blocking his way. "Our meeting is more important," he growled. "Not to worry, my good man. We won't be taking up too much of your precious time." Thatch smiled warmly, but laid his arm around the smaller man's shoulder, leading him to walk with them down the sidewalk in the direction of the docks. "We have us a bit of problem that a man of science, such as yourself, might be able to assist with." Thatch led Philip with Hornigold and Tom hovering behind them. Philip couldn't help looking anxiously back at Hornigold's stern face. "Now then, you remembering the story I told you about the fate of me frigate, the Queen Anne's Revenge?" "Yes. Your ship sits at the bottom of the bay." "That is correct. Not much could be done about such a predicament where we come from, but it has been told to me that currently there might be a solution to raise her from the icy depths so that she could sail once again." Philip looked up at Blackbeard to see the seriousness of his question. He was able to pause their walk and take a drag from his cigarette to think a moment. The two men and the boy watched him with stone faces as he pondered the dilemma. He did understand the mechanics that were used to repair and raise vessels that had sunk. If the ship could be repaired, such as a hole patched, one could use flotation balloons to raise it to the surface. The Queen Anne's Revenge was a 200-ton vessel, but that was calculated as cargo capacity, not its actual weight. Maybe 100 feet in length, he reckoned, 25 or 26-foot beam, with a depth of 10 or so feet below the main deck, creating an area below deck with a volume less than 25,000 cubic feet. Lining the main hold with a large bladder or balloon that could be pumped with air should raise the ship to the surface where repairs could be made, depending on the extent of the damage. What is the damage to the vessel that caused it to sink? A hole, you worm. What else would have caused it? Hornigold retorted. One hole? Several? A gash, a rip, a tear, a laceration, a crack, a round shot maybe? Philip sarcastically listed. Thatch held his hand on Hornigold's chest as the man made an aggressive move at Philip. Our dear Charlotte de Barry would be the one with the answer. She was down in the hold when it became flooded. Is there a solution if the hole could be repaired? Philip took a long, thoughtful drag on his cigarette before blowing out the smoke in a steady stream. It would be costly, but I think it could be done. How costly? Asked Hornigold. You'd need skilled divers, a salvage boat, a large waterproof flotation balloon, several pumps, possibly a crane, several thousands of dollars. 4,000, most likely. There would be my fee, of course. Hornigold again needed to be held back by Thatch. Thatch grinned at the small man as he nervously smoked and stared up at the two pirates. Put the plan together and we'll meet you here in 2 days with the money. Don't fail us, Philip Albert. We are not men to be trifled with. The two men turned their backs to Philip and continued down the sidewalk. The Chinese boy stood glaring at Philip, tapping the butt of his derringer peeking out of his shoulder holster, before turning and following in the pirate's wake. Do you really think your science man can raise the Revenge? Hornigold asked Thatch as they continued on their way. Raise it we must. I have little desire to labor while such treasure is within our grasp. We need 4,000 of this city's dollars for the job. How do you propose to find that? We will enlist Anne Bonny's new friends in our endeavor. They seem capable men of the sort to know where this money could be had, Thatch said. Yes, Anne told me of the coach they plundered. A nice booty of spirits and jewelry. We must find several together to achieve our goal for that much loot. Might take some time to fence the booty from them coaches as well. Better if we find one carrying gold or silver. Train, Tom said from behind them. Hornigold and Thatch stopped and turned to the boy. What's that, boy? Asked Thatch. No moving gold by coach no more. Train, Tom said. I've heard talk of this train. It moves without horses. Steam, like the ships without sails, Hornigold said. Then it is time to see this marvel for ourselves, Thatch said, then turned to Tom. Oi, take us to this train. The two pirates stood in awe of the fantastical mechanical beast that stood in front of them with its 4 giant slotted wheels mounted on the engine standing taller than a man. Those wheels rode upon rails of metal that stretched in either direction for as far as the eye could see. There were 4 small wheels on the front of the large cylinder-shaped engine car that had an open cabin in the rear where 2 men went about their work checking dials and levers. Black smoke was billowing from a large exhaust tube that jutted out from the front as the engine coughed while it was being shut down. Behind this car was an enormous cart, overflowing with coal. Their gaze continued to take in each additional car that was attached behind the engine, with some featuring curtained windows and ornate doorways with steps leading inside. The area around the train was crowded with passengers disembarking with luggage and bags. They were in the process of greeting relatives and friends, as they had just arrived moments before. Blackbeard was disappointed that they had been too late to see the arrival of the train. He slowly moved down the wooden walkway past each car, peering inside, catching glimpses of the interior. The cars began to show signs of added elegance as he moved toward the rear of the train. He noticed that between the cars there were also doors, so that one could walk from one car to the next without disembarking. Near the end of the train, he was taken by surprise to see one that also served as a dining room. He hopped up onto the steps, holding the side rail, and gazed inside. There were indeed tables and chairs inside, complete with linen and silverware. A bar on one side was tended by a man sporting a fashionable suit and hat. The bartender looked up at Blackbeard from his work of cleaning glasses, and Thatch slid back down the stairs to stare dumbstruck back at the length of the vehicle. What wonders, Hornigold said quietly. Indeed, was all Thatch could say. Young Tom was looking around, watching the passengers hurry along their way. He watched men beginning to unload cargo from cars further up near the engine. There were dozens of workers along with riflemen that were busy emptying out the contents of the train. This activity finally caught Thatch's attention. Train carries sometimes gold, silver, always people. People with money, said Tom. It is like a ship at port, Thatch said. Aye, how do we take such a beast as it travels? Asked Hornigold. It only travels by way of these rails? Asked Thatch. Yes, Captain, said Tom. We could construct a blockade so the vehicle would have to stop. Hornigold looked down the long length of the train and counted the men and cars with his fingers. There will be a great many people on board. Very difficult to control such a large group with just... He looked down at the Chinese boy. Just us 9. Maybe most on board will be just travelers and unwilling to put up a fight, but if men such as those with long rifles are on board or nearby, our piracy could come to a swift and violent end. Aye, Benjamin, but we must meet this train far away from help and prying eyes. We will need horses and a wagon or 2 for our loot. Let's conspire with Miss Bonnie's new friends on the best plan. We need to be quick about it, since our smart Englishman will be expecting us in 2 days' time. I hope you're enjoying this historical fiction book with pirates and time travel all wound together in it. You can find the ebook and physical books at my website, briancantrell.com. You can also find the second book in this series, Pirates of World War II. And if you're a fan of pirates, you can check out thepiraterepublic.com. It's a weekly newsletter that I put out every Friday. All sorts of great pirate history, events, news, and happenings. You can also toss a few doubloons our way by joining our Patreon at Patreon, The Pirate Republic. We'll see you next week. Till then, fair winds and keep a weathered eye.